Hello and welcome to the Illicit Feminine. I'm so excited to have my friend and mentor. I think that we're not quite sure what the right word is, but Kassi has been my guide for almost the last year. It has been amazing working with her. She is a woman of so many talents, the author of May Cause Love, which I highly recommend. And the guest on which we're going to have the conversation specifically today, right? But there's so many different layers to you as this incredible woman, but really talking about the intentional year of celibacy and your journey along it. And now that how are we going to say this? Now that the timeline of the journey has completed, right? I don't know whether the celibacy has or not, but like the effects of all of that from you. So I want to welcome Kassi Underwood.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I love that this is called the illicit feminine. I feel like a lot of the feminine is actually illicit, and
Absolutely.
so it's the perfect title. And I love your work so much. I respect you so much and your magic and your intuition and what you bring to the world. So it's really such an honor to be here with you.
Kassi, thank you so much. Kassi has really helped to help me step into my illicit feminine, into my darker feminine, my pleasure. Not that's dark, I'm saying just for me personally. Like the darker sides of myself, the darker sides of my pleasure, of my desire, of who I am, and really anchor in. And it's actually Kassi's launching this beautiful new program called the Feminine Urge, which we will definitely get into. And it's just, I appreciate your work and the revolution that you are creating and continuing. So,
Thank you. Mutual.
so I'm excited for our conversation because when you first shared this concept with me, was like totally intrigued. And I think, so September was my month for really kind of focusing on the different ways people do relationships. And I realized tomorrow is October, but it's really important to me to have this conversation because I think it's really important for women to even explore this. And I think that celibacy we hear as either in certain religious contexts, spiritual contexts, different things like that. And I think celibacy in itself is an illicit topic. And I would really love to hear, what are we even talking about today? Like, what is this conversation even about?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's been so funny. I started out on this year and it started out where it was just a year of like not dating. And to me, that is celibacy because just the way that I'm like sensitive and weird. And so I don't like sleep with people when I'm not in a relationship with them, or at least I hadn't I mean, and I still haven't, but my entire adult life. So I'd been in relationship after relationship since I was 20 and I'm 41. And
Okay.
so what celibacy initially meant was just I'm just not dating, but then it came to my attention that people still thought I was just like hooking up with people and just kind of not being in a relationship. And so I
Yeah.
had to clarify it for myself like this and for not I don't have to clarify it for anyone else, but this journey when I was in it, but for me it became like that I needed to clarify that I'm not having any kind of sexual relationship with a man. I'm not like nothing, like no kissing, no sexting, nothing, like nothing at all. And so that I could really study and like explore my own feminine energy. And I feel like what we're taught about, if we've even been aware of the conversation about masculine and feminine energy or polarity, is that the feminine energy is part of a relationship, and that is in some ways true, which we can get into. And of course, it's true. It's what can create polarity. But I just wanted to immerse myself in it because I didn't feel like I'd had access to it like for many years of my life. There was a time where I became like a tomboy when I was like, 7 or 8 to get accepted. And then, I mean, it was a strategy to become a tomboy. I remember thinking, it wasn't like I feel more true to myself as a boy. It was like, strategically, it was a strategy to become more like a boy. And even though we're talking about energy and not gender, which is totally different, that I have felt I spent my entire life developing my masculine energy, and I just wanted to devote myself to the feminine. And I needed to do that without the context of a relationship, specifically because relationships can polarize. And what I mean by that is, I know a lot of women these days who are in relationships, including myself, who have in the past, where you go into it and maybe in the beginning you're feeling like woo-hoo-hoo, and they are asking you out on dates, and they're taking you out to dinner, and then at a certain point you settle in and suddenly you're handling absolutely everything. You're planning, you're initiating, you're making sure everything, all the ducks in a row, you're handling the finances, you might also be making the money, tracking the kids, doing absolutely everything. And before you know it, you're spending like 20 years in your masculine energy, just trying to manage life. And that is essentially what kept happening to me in relationship, is that I didn't even know how to be in feminine long term in a relationship. And so I really wanted to spend this time not having someone else's energy that I would be creating something with, and just have my own energy that I could sink into. And so that's why I was just like, I'm going to spend this year just with myself and see what happens.
I love this. You're talking a lot about energy, and I would love just to define. I think there's a lot of listeners who understand masculine and feminine energy, and I think that there's some people who may be not exactly quite clear on
Yeah.
masculine and feminine energy and the differences between them. And also, I would love you to put it in a context after you share your thoughts on that. Like, why, what the strategy was when you were like younger, that you just had this innate,
Hmm.
I'm going to say innate, like thought and strategy of, oh, I'm going to step more into my masculine. And then that created, you just shared, you've been in your masculine for so long. So just kind of then bringing it back to that, because I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So first of all, just what is masculine and feminine energy? We all have both. We all have masculine and feminine. Most of us feel more like ourselves if we are majoring in one and minoring in another. So, majoring in feminine and minoring in masculine, majoring in masculine, minoring in feminine. It's not gender. So, a masculine energy person can be a woman, a feminine energy person can be a man, or you can be any, whatever you feel true to on the gender spectrum. That's different than what your energetic is. The energy, so masculine energy is about doing, whereas feminine is about being. The masculine is strategizing, the feminine is intuiting. The masculine is doing, it's just the complete opposite is what we're looking at here. And we together, it creates polarity. So if you're in a relationship, one person is doing the planning, the asking, the initiating. The other person is usually doing the leaning back. The receiving is feminine. Masculine is giving and letting themselves be led. Now, this can also bring up, people are like, well, this is so like anti-feminist. And listen, I am like a fucking hardcore feminist. Like, I wrote a book about my abortion. I've been all over the country talking about my abortion, and I have been the breadwinner in my family. I'm a single mother. I am as feminist as they come. Where I think that we have lost the plot is that we have devalued the feminine so much that we don't even value, like, we think that for a woman to be in her feminine energy is like, ew, like, why would you want to do that when you can, like, no, you should like focus on running your business, and like, which is, you can do from a feminine angle. You cannot start your business in feminine. It takes masculine energy to initiate, to start it. But once you've gotten it going, you can like live in a feminine state and run a business. But so those are the two elements of masculine and feminine. And what I'm really passionate about is elevating the feminine energy so that it is seen as equal to the masculine. And that's where I think we've like totally lost the plot, is that we're like advocating for masculine energy over and over again, including in feminist spaces, and that we're like saying that that's like what a real woman is doing that. Whereas why are we like valuing the masculine over the feminine and calling that feminism? I just it's like blowing my mind. And so really like creating a much deeper understanding of what the feminine is part of my mission, because it's got so much more range than what we're even giving it credit for. Like we're thinking that yes, it is feminine to be like soft, but it's also feminine to be in the full expression of rage. We think that feminine is being submissive, but we forget that we get to choose who we're going to, if we are going to be led by someone, we get to choose the best motherfucker on earth to lead us. And then we get to relax. So we get to like really benefit from that. I feel like this is like true empowerment, is knowing that you can go into this state of rest, relaxation, creativity, intuition, even chaos, spontaneity, all of these elements that feel really natural for a lot of us, that we feel like we have to suppress to fit into the workforce, that we have to suppress to be a mother, to fit into like, the PTA meeting or whatever. And those are like the juiciest parts of life for me. And a lot of masculine people, who are men who are deeply in their masculine, or women who are deeply in their masculine, really value the feminine energy. And so it's interesting that I hear women a lot of times devaluing feminine energy, or getting almost the ick, which I certainly got the ick around feminine energy. And I think that that's why when I was, in elementary school, I perceived that girls who were like wearing pink and like just doing like girly things, that and they were like, submissive and quiet, or whatever it was, that they were weak, and they were like not going. I was like, this isn't going to like do anything. Like this isn't going to get me anywhere in life. And I don't feel like that's who I am. But I think it's also true that we are developed as like children to not fully express ourselves as feminine. Like the feminine is an instrument, it's a muscle, it's a way of being, it's a way of moving your body in the world, that I've just, really deeply discovered even more over the past year. And as little girls, I know for me, my mother was always like praising me if I was quiet and drawing, or like she thought it was just, oh, you could just sit down somewhere and just draw for hours. But there was this
Yeah.
other part of me that was characterized, the closest thing I could come up with was masculine. That was this other part of me, when actually it was like a part of my feminine expression, was a wildness that I didn't even have the kind of context to move through. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, and I love it because my next like thing I'd love you to share around is there is this confusion. Like and I want to get into it. Like I want to get
Yeah.
into the confusion around when you're saying feminists are like devaluing, or you did not say that. There can be in a feminist context the devaluing of like true femininity. And what I love about where you're going with this is like really let's fully understand like full femininity. I mean, you've named the energy of it, right? But like it's the chaos, you shared the rage, but like where's some of the confusion around what real true like femininity is?
Yeah, well, I think it begins with, for so long, that women have not had power in owning, like a housewife, for example, would maybe not have her name on the mortgage, and would not have the credit card in her name, and would not have all of these, would not have like financial equality and financial empowerment, and didn't know how to advocate for it. I know that my mother didn't really know what was going on with the finances, even though she was making the money. And so, like, she had no idea what.
I think that's true still. And that was probably like however many like years ago for your mother. But I think that like I know women who are in their 50s who have just gotten their own credit cards,
Yeah, it's still
have no
happening.
idea what was going on
Yeah, it's still
with their
happening. I
finances.
think there's an assumption that if let's say for example that there's a that you're in a relationship, and I'm going to use some very like gender normative
Yeah.
examples here, but let's say that a woman is staying home with the kids and a man is making the money. There is almost this assumption, not almost, I see it over and over and over again, that she has no right to know what's going on with the money, that she has no right to, that she should just be grateful he's paying for all of this, and that she has basically no rights in the relationship. My feeling is if we understand feminine energy as being equal to masculine energy, then we understand its value in the home. And it's worth a lot actually, and it should be preserved. And what happens is it not only does it actually gets wrecked because she ends up taking on way more because she doesn't get to turn it off at the end of the day. Like she's always on. She's always
Her
working.
masculine energy. She doesn't get to turn her
So then her
masculine energy
masculine
off.
takes over. She doesn't even experience her own value as a feminine energy, because if she did, she'd be like, motherfucker, this is worth like, this is worth so much money. It wouldn't even be a question that she should know what's going on, that she should have financial equality, even if he is earning the money, because of what she is in the context of the relationship, whether there are kids or not, is like the light, the fun, the spontaneity, like the whole aliveness of the relationship is going to be her presence there. The whole aliveness of the home, or even like you can have your own business and still be provided for. Like these are not mutually exclusive, which a lot of people think that they are. But if someone's in their feminine, they're going to, and truly in their feminine power with it, and understanding how valuable it is. It is like fuel for masculine energy. They can make a lot more money with a very feminine woman in the home. They can feel more inspired, more creative. Like they get a lot from us being in our feminine. Like we are their relaxation, their fun. They have very little access to their own bodies without us being there, because masculine lives in the head and feminine is really embodied. And so it's so valuable that, of course, if you're in that place and getting to and understanding the value of it and protecting it, you're not going to let yourself go. You're not going to let the context of the relationship send you into masculine. You're going to say, no, we need to hire people to handle that. We can support other people's businesses. Hire someone to handle this and this and this, so that I can stay in this place, so that I can feel really good. And you come home and I'm like more creatively expressed. My dog is like totally agreeing. Like
Max Rico's like, yes, yes.
Yes, mama. Yeah. So you're like, as a feminine, you're going to be constantly evolving and expressing and creating. And then that's a total fuel for the masculine. So without understanding your value and without understanding like what you're actually preserving about yourself, you won't know to preserve it. So years go by and you're in masculine and he's in masculine and everybody's turned off. Nobody wants to have sex.
They're like living these like separate lives, but together. But we've been married for 30 years.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, you love each other, but yeah, you're just like,
So we haven't slept in the same bed for like decades, but
exactly. Yeah, yeah, but like he's still providing and you're still like it's so much, and it's so much work for the feminine and the relationship. And so without understanding that, no, this has to be preserved. Like if I'm doing all this other stuff, I'm going to lose that part of myself. So we need to figure this out. And also this is so valuable, and it actually does take effort and it does take focus to maintain the feminine energy in oneself, because you're regulating your nervous system to a very high degree. If you're in feminine, you're like super regulated, you're having a good time, you are able to move through emotions, you have tools for that. You're not going to get stuck in your bitterness. You're not going to get stuck in like not knowing what to say or how to say it to him or how to ask him for this or that. It just isn't going to happen if you're truly equipped for it. But we're not equipped. So then we do end up financially disempowered, or we either end up financially disempowered, or we're like, you know what? I'm tired of having to ask him for money or for permission. So I'm just going to start my own business, and I'm going to go even deeper into masculine, and which there's nothing wrong. You can totally start your own business and ultimately preserve feminine, as I said before, but there's just this kind of like, I'll just give up then.
there's got to be a consciousness and an intention around it rather than like the default is just slipping back into the masculine. And you said like the financial disempowerment, but there's also like the emotional disempowerment. I mean, I think within my own marriage, I, instead of knowing how to use my voice and knowing how to say like I'm not happy, like you're so in your masculine and like you're so providing, which is amazing, but like we have no connection because the only thing you do is work. I didn't know how to say that. So if I had understood then what I've really learned now about the feminine of like, and my powers in the feminine of like being like, I like really long for this like connection and this time and like my part and role. And I happen to be talking about, a man in this, but it doesn't have to be in it, take whatever gender it is or you are like the when I'm in my desire, right? Like that's such a turn on then for him. And I'm in my own turn on. And then that's where you can really, it's also the emotional empowerment around it.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So the other thing that we do is we walk on eggshells around men and like we coddle them. I feel like it's rampant, the coddling of men either financially and then we end up carrying it all and making all the money, or coddling them emotionally because we buy into they're not meaning to a lot of the times, but they have been taught that because they're out earning the money and providing and handling those things that we have no right to be ever have any emotion or ever
Right.
talk about our own experience or what's going on with us. And so we just need to like be quiet and that's it. And then you're disconnected because that's totally an inauthentic relationship.
Absolutely.
There's no truth being exchanged. It's like you're holding space for him. If you're not being totally authentic, then he can't be totally authentic. So
It's surface.
yeah, it's surface level and it's so like a turn off. Like I don't want to, if I'm not feeling completely transparent with a partner, I'm turned off. Like I do not want to have sex. And so
Mm-hmm.
I love truth. I love authenticity. I would rather hear like a truth that made a man look bad and like maybe look, what he might perceive as like weak or like he messed up or he failed or whatever. I think that's way hotter to say that truth than to pretend or to tell a white lie or whatever. Even coming back and being like, hey, I told a white lie because I was scared, that would be like chef's kiss.
Right. Like they're like it's the transparency.
The transparency and the feminine leads transparency because part of the feminine is truth. If you're in a polarized relationship, which is, I think it's hot to be in a polarized relationship, you're emphasizing your differences. The masculine, whether man or woman or gender neutral or other gender identity, is like holding the space of structure, discipline, providership, protecting all of that. And then in that space, you as the feminine gets to be gets to be gets to be seeing without scanning. The masculine scans for threat. The
Right.
feminine,
They're on alert.
yeah, they're on alert. Yeah, hypervigilance, whatever it is, wherever that alert comes from. And the feminine is just like listening for truth and
I
authenticity,
love
the
that.
music
I love
matching
that.
the lyrics, like how many of us have been that show, what was that show recently? Like no one wants it, whatever. Do you want to talk?
Oh, it's with
Kristen
Kristen.
Bell,
Yes.
that guy.
Not no one but us. No.
We don't know the name of the show, but I've got a point.
Yes.
Everyone was going like wild for this guy because he was like, I can handle you, or said this kind of stuff that was like, you think nobody can handle you, but I can, or whatever. And everyone was like, oh my God, like my dream man. And I'm like, y'all, every man knows how to talk like this these days. Every man has an Instagram, like most men have an Instagram account or are watching this show and know how to say the right thing. They all know how to do this. Like they've gone to a therapy session or two, or somebody's dragged them to couples therapy before. They know how to say the right thing. What you want to look at is or feel, and this is what the feminine does, is feel, does the music match the lyrics?
I love
And
that. Just music match the lyrics.
and
Yeah.
like with the feminine, we're like sensing and feeling. And if you're having to if you're having to also scan the vicinity for threats, you can't really, it's hard to be in that space also of like feeling for that. And that's part of what the feminine brings to the emotional range of a relationship is like something doesn't feel right or I'm angry and it doesn't need to be expressed toward the masculine.
Mm.
And that's where we get so lost is that we want to if we do want to express our emotions, we end up like you don't always do this and you don't even see me like it becomes this explosion or this bitterness or coldness or we
Blaming, shaming, all the things. That's not being in your feminine.
yes, and then he either starts like white lying because he's afraid to get in trouble for anything, or he shrinks and goes away and hides and disappears. And so the feminine knows how to feel through her emotions with different tools and then talk to him. And usually you can come from a place of humor or theater or whatever at that point rather than, you know, like spewing at someone. And it allows for like more openness. But we don't want to
Absolutely.
keep it either we don't talk about it, because I've totally been in that relationship where you just don't talk about it. Or, and like those can be nice relationships, but they won't last forever because there end up being so many things that you haven't gotten to that they
Right.
build up. Or the explosive relationship, both of those are miserable in their own way. And then there's the connected one that's like authentic, but like I really like an authentic relationship that doesn't feel like you're just like exchanging fucking therapy speak the entire time.
Right.
It's
You're not always processing.
not like, oh, can we process what happened earlier? And you're like sitting together. That's like,
Right.
ugh, like that's not hot to me. I would not want to like go fuck after that. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Like I would
Yeah.
not like I
Yeah.
would much rather like just have like a really authentic conversation. But you really, if you're having to process with someone in that way all the time, there's just way too much charge that you're bringing into the space. Like that needs to be handled. There's a line in the, you know, in the actually in the 12-step basic text where it says it's better to handle things on the flank than to risk face-to-face combat. And what I used to think that meant is I'm going to go off in my corner and handle this, but I'm not going to tell you I ever felt this way. And you're never going to know about it. And I'm not going to bring it up because I don't trust you to not explode at me. And I don't trust, you know, that you're going to hear it or you're going to go into, you know, I failed or whatever it is. And that's not, it doesn't mean that you hide how you feel by doing your spiritual practice so well that you're numb or like you get okay alone. It means that you express the fullness of your emotion, not suppress, express it, usually with other women. We need each other.
Yes. 100%.
And then you can go and there's something there, you get access again, your nervous system is back online. Like you get access to your ability to like say the thing at the moment. You don't have to plan what to say. You just know.
Well, and you're in your intuition, like you're in
Yeah.
that feminine. Okay. So how did going celibate for a year deepen your relationship with your feminine?
Oh my gosh, so many ways. So, first of all, as I fell into my feminine, I got to get how valuable the feminine is. I had not like been in my feminine truly for many years. I feel like I spent like a brief period in my like in my 20s or like teens in it. And then what happened to me is what happens to most women is that the feminine energy is so intoxicating. Like just walking down the street, being in your feminine, the feminine actually, Regina Tamashauer taught me this. She's the author of Pussy and she's one of my teachers. I love and respect her so much. And she has trained me in many ways for this. And I know when I like walk down the street, she's taught me that feminine loves attention. And so when I
Mm-hmm.
let myself be seen walking down the street, it's a very specific, like you're gonna get attention.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I did not have boundaries. I didn't know where my line was. And so as I like, I would get, for many, if you're in your feminine, people want to give you stuff because you're in
Yeah.
actually such a receiving energy. So I remember in my 20s, I would always like, we're going to put you in first class or like, we're going to give, you know, free whatever. Everywhere I went was just like free stuff. And I would feel a little guilty about this because we don't have nobody contextualizes what the feminine is. So
Absolutely.
I would feel really, is this okay? But like I love it and it's fun, but then I'd be like, oh. And I ended up going through a work experience where, I was just totally in my feminine, la da da da, and it kind of like escalated to a really uncomfortable place. And there was basically sexual harassment happening. And I got so scared and there were a lot of things that happened in that period of time that kind of like came to light about having this feminine energy and then it being a target
Yeah.
because of not having boundaries or the kindness of the feminine, the love. The feminine is just like overflowing with love all the
Yeah.
time in many cases. And that can be, if you're not clear on how you're going to share with others and like where your boundaries are, that can be exploited. And so there were like lots of instances of that being exploited, or I'm thinking that I'm being given too freely and I'm really being given to with a very like with an expectation that I didn't want to meet. Or
Mhm.
there's
Yeah.
a trick on the back end of getting something for free. So I remember thinking, God, this has just gotten me in so much trouble. I just like this has got me in so much trouble. I'm so scared all the time. I feel like this is literally putting me in danger. And I was cleaning off my computer, and at the time I was applying to grad school at Columbia for writing, and I dropped my Windex on my computer, like all over the keyboard. And I was like, oh no. And I barely had enough money for rent. Like I did not have any money at the time. And I was like, okay, I could totally go and like smile and get this for free. I could go in with just like the feminine magic turned up and turned on and get this like taken care of for free. But that just keeps getting me in trouble. So I'm just going to pay for it. And I'm just going to pay for it myself and like do this. And so I did. And then my rent was late and like all this kind of cascade of other things happened. I had my grandfather, like it was like I had to get all this like help anyway. But then I ended up getting into grad school and I had this memory of, okay, I paid for that myself. That was safe. Then I took out student loans and I was like, I'm just going to like be in this other place where I'm self-sufficient. I don't want to receive anything for free. That's dangerous. And so I lived like that for a long time and just developed my masculine through the years until I was married and taking care of everything, started a business when I was pregnant and in grad school full time and just like working, handling everything, managing everything, exhausted, feeling alone in the world, breastfeeding, driving 4 hours commute, like just exhausted all the time. And then I tried to go into feminine after I got divorced. I realized, okay, I depolarized the relationship so much and he felt emasculated and I didn't know how to receive. And, I just was so masculine in this relationship. I don't want to do that again. But I didn't know how to be in feminine either. And when I did try, it was like this very, wounded feminine because I really hadn't been in like starting from when I was like 7 or 8 and realized, oh gosh, maybe I should be more like a boy. And then like the brief period where I realized like sexual power of feminine
Right.
and then going into masculine, all I had was this like wounded feminine. And the wounded feminine waits. She's always waiting for someone else to just like come in and take care of things. She doesn't feel like she has like choices. She thinks that she has to like be sweet and let people kind of like walk all over her because, and especially if you've been in masculine, you're like, I don't even have, what is this other, I guess I just need to be nice and sweet. Like you don't even know. So it ends up feeling very suppressed and disempowering. And I think that's a lot where a lot of women leave it. If they've looked into this, they're like, okay, like I've tried the feminine and that I feel like not myself. Like that doesn't feel like me at all. Because that's not you. We actually have to develop this instrument and this like toolkit and build up this energetic field and understand where your boundaries are and have a voice and be able to say, I don't like that. That doesn't feel good to me. Or no, I didn't say that that's not part of this exchange, or asking specifically, what will you be expecting from me if you give me this, we need to develop the voice to say all of this. And it's not all sweetness. It's also like fire and like energy and truth and like not bullshitting. And so what I learned is like the value of that and the
Mhm.
value of like moving through the wounded feminine to get to the feminine power, and being able to speak my truth, and realizing that like men can handle it.
Mm,
Can What they can't handle is when there's this like inauthentic energy, or when there's a using energy
yeah.
through. They actually kind of delight in the truth when it's spoken without blame, like when there's
Yeah.
not charge behind it.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're sharing kind of generalizations about the benefits, right? That you really, I mean, you're not sharing generalizations. Let me get this. You've shared with us like yours is within celibacy and what that has given to you, right? But like in general, you were sharing that men really like appreciate this version of a woman. Now that you are complete, how do you see your relationships, like for you, specifically being different now that you have been in this journey?
With men or with
With,
women?
I'm going to go with men for right now,
Okay. I
like
uh,
romantically.
so number one is that in a relationship, I value so much being able to stay in my feminine.
Yeah.
That is like number one, because my feminine, it's definitely benefits the relationship, and it will definitely benefit my partner, and that is how I feel hot and sexy. So for me, one of the main reasons I would be in a relationship is because to have sex.
Yeah.
That's what I like, to have sex. And so like why would I want to be in a relationship where I'm going to be turned off sexually or not feel into it? And I know that for me, I have to be in my feminine to feel like truly turned on sexually. So I want a relationship with someone who is going to be able to hold that space and understand what that takes.
Okay. And so when you feel, and again, you've shared so beautifully, like what feminine energy is, but for you to be like turned on in your femininity, what does that look like for you? And I don't mean like what you're turned on. I mean like how, like what is the energy that you know that you're in your full femininity?
Okay, I'm like, well, he puts my leg up. No. So
In the ear, and then
yeah.
there's some different situations occur.
Then I turn over this way. Um, so yeah, I think the main thing is I'm not in my head. And I'm
Yeah.
not in my head. I mean, that's really it. Like I know that he's got it. And that means, I like bluntly, I feel women or feminine energy people should choose a partner who they think is at least their intellectual equal, but ideally smarter than them. So if
Okay.
you have a mind that is can integrate like different belief systems and kind of questions the status quo, you can't be with someone who's like drinking the Kool-Aid of like one of the, yeah. Yeah, you're gonna always question like this guy doesn't really get, it's just gonna feel a little bit like they're not on the same level as you intellectually. So I feel like for me to trust his mind, I need to know he has a mind that's as good or better than mine, for sure. For me personally, because I have the capacity to make a lot of money, I will, I know for me, so you have to know yourself. For
Yeah.
me, I'll compete if I feel that I have a chance to compete with a man that I'm with. So I need a man I can't even compete with financially. Because if I can, I'm going to go into masculine and compete with them.
Mhm.
So I need somebody who like blows me out of the water financially so that I can stay in my feminine. And I feel that like, and then they need to understand what it means to hold containment. So containment is like one of the most important aspects of being able to be in your feminine is that you are contained. Part of that is financial containment. Part of that is meaning like that someone will provide for you if you desire that. You don't have to desire that. Personally, I'll be in my head. I'll even be in my head, so before I was married, I was married for 8 years. And before that, I pretty much had containment in every relationship. So I want to name, like, I think something is different in the world right now that is like calling for this kind of re-education. And I was married for 8 years. Before that, I was in relationships that were all like live in and very contained. These are guys, meaning that these guys would text me and call me every day, multiple times a day. I always knew the next time I was going to see them. We lived together. I've lived with three people, and in those relationships, they were planning dates. They always had an idea about what we were going to do next. Hey, do you want to do this? How would you? They were keeping in mind like my dietary restrictions, like everything I liked, and they were very caring and loving in that way. There was not a lot of financial containment, and that was a big part of like where I would go into masculine, but they were really wonderful at all of those things. And I will also say that I had no idea about any of these like rules that, so
Yeah.
I assumed if I went on a date with somebody and I liked them, I assumed first of all they were going to ask me on the date, and then I was like, okay, I like you, so we're together now. I just assumed that, and like you're going to show up in this way, and they would come find me wherever I was. Even in college, like they would come find me at work or go find me in the library where I was studying. Like they were kind of bring me a snack. Like there was just very much like, especially in those early 20s years, like I felt I was in my feminine. And then after I got divorced, I was, a single mother. So I think that it's a different energetic field than being just a
Sure.
single woman in the world. But also, it was after Me Too had happened while I was married. I think that has made people confused about how to approach relationships, which is, I'm so, of course, Me Too had to happen.
Right.
As a feminist, I'm so grateful that occurred, and it needs to more and more needs to come out so that we can all be honest about what's going on here. But I think it's caused a lot of confusion for
Sure.
relationships. And then also I was just older. So the people who are, still out there, if they've never been married, they might be guys who just aren't that good at containment or are not
Yeah.
that interested in it. And so I was finding like I ended up in a relationship with one guy, and I remember during it I was like, I have time for a second boyfriend. He texts me at like sometime between like 6 p.m. and 11 every night. Like we see each other like twice a week. Most guys, I mean, every other guy I'd been with wanted to spend pretty much every night together and would, be in touch throughout the day, like, and not in like a high maintenance kind of way, but just like touching base.
Yeah, like a
Yeah, normal
relationship
relationship.
way.
Yeah, and so like that kind of relationship happened, or that there was like, there's a lot of music not matching the lyrics situation because they've been wounded by previous relationships. So now they're white lying, and then you feel unsafe if you feel like there's a white.
Yeah.
And so that was part of like my initial going into this was I want to have a wonderful relationship, and like what is that, what does that even look like anymore, and how do I want to feel? So this is what I discovered. So having containment means that he's initiating communication. He's not leaving you to initiate all the texts. He's bold. He's going to like reach out to you. He's going to reach out to you in the morning. He's going to, he just is leading. You can feel his leadership. You feel it. It's not just it's not just in actions. Like he's not doing a rubric. There is a rubric, but it's not just that he is fulfilling the rubric. He's fulfilling it with his energy, and you feel that energy. He communicates what the plans are. He follows through. If he does what he says he's going to do when he says he's going to do it, not an hour later or a day later, when he says. And if he doesn't do it when he says, he's going to say, hey, I know I said I was going to do this then, but I can't, or this thing came up, so I'm going to do it at this time. And then there's an accountability that's like very clear and on time, even if he has to like restore integrity with like, okay, it's not going to happen at that time. He can place his feelings above yours. So a lot of men, which is so wonderful, are in therapy and are exploring how they feel, but sometimes they can get so immersed in their own feelings now that they forget to take care of ours, and they're more interested in how we're making them feel than how they're making us feel. And we need to feel that he can overcome his own anxiety, which of course we all have we've all been wounded, we've all gone through shit.
Yeah.
He can overcome his own anxiety to reach out and say, would you like to do this? Especially in the beginning, or I feel this, I'm scared about this thing. He can overcome his own shit to step toward you in the relationship. He doesn't go off on his own to self-manage his stress or whatever it is. He comes closer. And then he's a selfless giver. So a lot of women and feminine energy people have been wounded by someone giving with an expectation they had not expressed in advance, or they receive with guilt or with like, oh gosh, he paid for dinner, now I need to have sex with him. No, you don't. You spent a dinner with him. That was really nice of you. Like as long as you showed up in your best self and your best energy and you were there to contribute with your fun vibes and energy, like just be in the journey of it. Like you don't owe him sex, you don't owe him anything because he paid for dinner. If he's in his masculine, he wants to regardless of what happens next. He would do that for his sister. He would do that for his friend, for his female friends. He's just doing it for you. I have plenty of men in my life who'll pay for my dinner who I'm not sleeping with,
Yeah.
and so he's a selfless giver. And you want to just like look for that. It doesn't mean that we can just like, I'm just going to receive and not do anything. I feel that there's a toxicity in that too, or in women just looking to like basically, you can find these teachers on Instagram teaching women how to get money from men. And if that's your path, right on. That's not going to be a totally authentic relationship. And I do believe it's possible to have that. Yeah.
So how do you thank you? Because I love just really explaining like that and the different you have learned from this journey of celibacy, especially like within yourself, and then how you want that to look for your relationship. So I would love us to close out like a little bit around the celibacy, and then I'd love you just to share a little bit about your new program, your new journey, the feminine urge. But like, what's something you want to leave us with about this journey for you on celibacy, or even just celibacy in general? Like you choose.
Yeah, I'm just speaking for myself, but as someone who tends to really like go all in relationships, no matter what energetic I'm polarizing toward, I really love being in a relationship. It's fun. And it's like, I love all of it. I love getting to know someone. I love having like a little world with someone. And what celibacy did for me was allowed me to create a world with myself and to really get to know, like, there were so many aspects of myself that I still wanted, like classes I wanted to take. And I took a burlesque class. I took a lot of improv. Burlesque is actually very improvish. It's a burl means joke. I've been studying with Regina Thomashour for all this time.
You
And
guys know her as Mama Gina, just in
Mama
case.
Gina,
Yeah.
yeah, Mama Gina. And I did a yoga teacher training. I'm learning like interior design from Hallie Goodman and just how to like even understand like what my style is. So these kind of like feminine arts of like beauty, did different things that I'd wanted to do for a long time. And when I was immersed in relationships, which are so much fun, there were also these parts of me that weren't getting nurturance because I was also making the money, all the time, mothering my child and then being in a relationship. Where was there time for me in
For
this?
you.
It's if I'm doing everything, there was no time left for me to do this. And it was actually taking a hit on my self-esteem. So I'd be in a relationship and I would feel like, and I didn't know what it was, and because I'd always been very probably overly confident looking back about being in relationships with people when I was younger. And I was suddenly noticing, I was like, why am I like doubting myself in this relationship? I've never felt this way before. Of course, you weren't a mother before. You weren't running a business before. You were just kind of like free and you were able to be in your feminine more. Especially in when I was most confident in my early 20s. And so getting to devote this time for myself, I feel like I radiate self-esteem, and I didn't want to have any questions in my mind going into a relationship of like just about my self-worth. I really wanted to feel that I am pouring into myself so powerfully that I know my value. And that also allows me to see his value and to appreciate his value. And, the man that I want to be with would be able to make it possible for me to stay in this place and where I wouldn't get taken out of it because I've spent so much time this year and so much of my energy giving to this part of myself. I don't want to lose it. And I think before, because I would study the feminine, but it'd be kind of like a side project within everything else. it didn't have the same value to me because I didn't understand how deep it could go. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so now I'm not afraid of like showing different parts of myself. I remembered how much I love costumes. I remembered how much I love to like push things and just like I can really be myself now. So I'm protecting that part of me by choosing a partner who will also protect that part of me. So that's what this year gave me was like so much self-esteem.
Love that, Cassie. I love it. And you can see it. Like it's just, I mean, it's obviously self-esteem, but it's also just this flow and this energy of feminine essence. Like it's and it we've talked about this, but like you want to be around it. Like you want to be in your presence because it's there and it's exuding. So take a few minutes. I know that we're wrapping up, but if you would share the feminine urge, what is it?
Okay, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. I really appreciate
Yeah.
it. So yeah, I've spent, I've really been studying this for 7 years, but the past year was like a real like download of what's possible for a feminine energy woman, especially those who maybe feel like, there's three types of women who are joining this program. There are either women who are married or in a relationship and feel like they've had to be in their masculine to take care of absolutely everything. And whether they are staying at home with the kids and managing the household, or whether they're working all the time and they're just exhausted, feel turned off. They want their partner to adore them, worship them, to have hot sex, to feel like turned on, alive, creative again. And that's why they're joining, is to build up this energetic field and to really know their value and self-worth, and just like and have these tools and to like fine tune this part of themselves. So that's one type of woman who's joining. Another type is the woman who has been on her own and is like, she may have been a single mother, she may be, even the kids are going off to college or in high school at this point, or not, whatever. And she is similarly exhausted, but she's been doing it all on her own. She's also been carrying the finances, and she just is, her masculine is so developed that she does not know how to even stop over giving, overdoing, over managing everything. And she's probably seeing it showing up in her relationships, where she gives a lot in the beginning and then just feels like it's not being reciprocated, and it's just so like disheartening. And probably she would like to be in a loving relationship, or at least to know her own feminine essence. So that's the second type. The third is a younger woman, in many cases, who is now like is on the precipice of so many cool things. Like maybe she's about to get married, maybe she has a job that she's really excited about, or is just promoted into a new position, and she wants to maintain her true self while going through this, or and develop her feminine, even if she's like in a man's world, rather than, because that is part of her value, including in the workplace, is her how different she is, that she sees things differently, that she can feel truth, that she's like, she has a different eye on things. So how does she maintain that part of herself moving through life, getting married and all of that? So those are the three kind of types of women who are joining. And yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt
Oh
you.
yeah.
Can I add like somebody else who I think would just I
Oh
like
my God,
see
please tell me who
in
else is.
that?
Yeah.
There's a fourth. I just wanted you to know. No, I do. I think that this is also like such a great container for women who are married and maybe not in their masculine, but have completely been disconnected from their feminine. And not, by no means do you need to be married to be disconnected from your feminine. However, I do see a number of women who may not be like the breadwinners, but like their feminine like is just
Yeah.
right.
Oh,
And
totally.
so I
Mhm.
think that that's also like I don't know what you say, a genre. I don't know if that's the right word, but of women that like also like they need like the fire, like they need
Yeah,
like it lit, like they don't even know like what does that even mean anymore
I
to be in
know.
my
Yeah.
feminine?
Yeah. I mean,
And
I
they
didn't
might
know
want
either.
to ignite it with their husband, like they might want that, but like they don't know. So I
And
just
that
that's
might seem so far, even to like being into him might be
yeah.
like, oh my God, that's like miles away. But even any woman who feels disconnected from her feminine,
Yeah,
any woman who's like just not feeling like hot and sexy. I mean, to me, I know I'm in my feminine if I feel hot, if I feel like,
totally.
you know, like myself, if I feel free, expressed, alive, like if I feel uninhibited, that tells me I'm in my feminine. And that also because that being in the feminine is countercultural. It's like, it's countercultural, it's revolutionary. A lot of people are going to, they might even misinterpret you. And that's, to me, that's so fun. That's like hilarious. Dolly Parton gets it. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
anybody who feels disconnected from their feminine for any reason, this program is going to not just reconnect you with it, but expand and really explode like your whole concept of what it means to be in feminine, because it's like ferocity, it's also softness, it's also like rage, and it's also grief, and it's longing, it's like really taking care of yourself. And then the thing about it that's so powerful to me is that it is not based in time. We're so used to the structure of time, and that we have to make decisions based on like, well, does this fit into this schedule? I don't know if that my schedule will work with this program. And it's like, well, like that's not what this program is about at all. It's actually about deeply following your desire. And if your desire is to, whatever your desire is, and it's to do this program, that you're going to actually just be like, I'm going to listen to my desire and see where, if I follow my desire instead of structure, instead of time, instead of all these things that we've been taught to follow, if I just follow my true desire, what will happen next? And if I keep following that, and then you end up collapsing timelines, things move in a totally different way. You end up totally, like your whole life feels different. And so I invite anybody who's like either, and by the way, I feel in some ways I'm trying to like describe a spiritual awakening when I try to describe this, like it's hard to describe, but if this speaks to anybody who's listening, if you're like, I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about, but I'm kind of intrigued, just book a call with me. And you can go to KassiUnderwood.com. It's Kassi and then Underwood, Carrie. KassiUnderwood.com/feminine urge. And then just book a 45-minute call with me and let's find out what your desires are and then take it from there. And you can
I
also find me
love
on
that.
Instagram at Kassi Underwood, and you can see some of my posts and my highlights, and that will talk a little bit more about this as well.
Awesome. Kassi, I love this conversation. And I love you. You are incredible. And thank you for being on the Illicit Feminine. It means so much. And yes, feminine urge. I love this new work. And thank you for sharing about your journey with celibacy and just where it's really brought you. Like it's awesome. Really is.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. All right. That is it for today. We will see you next time on the Illicit Feminine. Thank you for listening.